Stop what you're doing right now, because what I'm about to share with you could be the most important 30 minutes of health information you hear this year. And I say that not to be dramatic, but because most doctors, including many oncologists, are still not telling their patients over 60 about this. Not because they don't know, but because it doesn't come in a pill bottle. I'm Dr. James Hargrove, board-certified in internal medicine with over 30 years treating seniors for cancer prevention, senior health, and healthy aging. And what I found, confirmed by a landmark 2022 Harvard study from the T.H. Chan School of Public Health, following 116,000 adults for 28 years, is that one specific category of daily habits reduces overall cancer risk by up to 61% in adults over 60. 61%. That's not a supplement, that's not chemotherapy, that's lifestyle. Today I'm going to break down the 5 most powerful components of that habit, ranked from helpful to absolutely transformational. So by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to start doing tomorrow morning. And I want to tease something right now. Because number 1 on this list is something 90% of seniors over 60 are doing completely wrong. And the science suggests fixing it could cut your cancer risk nearly in half on its own. So do not skip ahead. Watch this to the end. The order matters. Each habit builds on the last. But before we dive in, I want to ask you something personally. Leave a comment below telling me your age. And this, have you ever had a doctor sit down and actually talk to you about cancer prevention? Not just detection, but prevention. I read every comment on this channel, and your answers shape what I cover next. Now let's get into it. Starting at number 5. Number 5 is something almost everyone dismisses as too simple to be serious. And that dismissal may be costing people their lives. I'm talking about cold water hydration. Specifically drinking 16 to 20 ounces of cold or room temperature filtered water first thing in the morning, before coffee, before food, before you look at your phone, before you roll your eyes, hear me out. The mechanism behind this is fascinating and deeply relevant to senior health after 60. After 55, something called interoceptive thirst sensitivity declines. That's a medical way of saying your brain gets worse at telling you when you're thirsty. A 2019 study from the University of Barcelona found that adults over 60 are chronically operating 8 to 12% below optimal cellular hydration, without ever feeling thirsty. Now, why does that matter for cancer? Because your lymphatic system, think of it like your body's internal garbage truck, collecting cellular waste and damaged DNA fragments, runs almost entirely on water. When you're dehydrated, that garbage truck slows down. Damaged cells accumulate. Inflammation rises, and chronic low-grade inflammation is now understood to be one of the primary drivers of cancer initiation, particularly colorectal cancer, bladder cancer, and kidney cancer. The Harvard Nurses' Health Study found that women who drank more than 5 glasses of water daily had a 45% lower risk of colon cancer compared to those who drank 2 or fewer. That's remarkable for something that costs nothing. For aging bodies specifically, hydration supports what researchers call autophagy, your cell's self-cleaning process. Think of autophagy like a quality control inspector inside each cell, breaking down damaged components before they can mutate. After 65, autophagy efficiency drops by about 30%. But proper hydration has been shown to partially restore that function. I had a patient named Harold, 73 years old, from my practice. Came to me with elevated inflammatory markers and constant fatigue. His diet was decent, his sleep was okay, but he drank maybe 2 cups of water a day, mostly coffee. I put him on the morning hydration protocol, 20 ounces upon waking. 6 weeks later, his inflammatory markers dropped 33%. His energy came back, and he told me he felt 10 years younger. Here's how to do it right. Keep a 20-ounce glass of filtered water on your nightstand. The moment your feet hit the floor, drink it. All of it. Before anything else. Add a squeeze of fresh lemon if you like. Lemon water benefits include D-limonene in the lemon peel, which has its own anti-tumor properties we'll touch on later. And here's your synergy tip. Pair your morning hydration with 10 minutes of light movement, even just walking around the house, because movement stimulates lymphatic flow and compounds the cellular cleansing effect by up to 40%, according to research from the Karolinska Institute in Sweden. That's number 5, the foundation. But what you layer on top of it at breakfast could be even more powerful. Let's talk about number 4. Number 4 is a food category that's been eaten for thousands of years across the world's longest living populations. Dismissed for decades by Western medicine, and is now the subject of over 1,200 peer-reviewed studies on cancer prevention. I'm talking about fermented foods, specifically naturally fermented options like plain yogurt, kefir, kimchi, sauerkraut, and miso. In 2021, a groundbreaking study from Stanford University School of Medicine published in the journal Cell found that adults who consumed high-fiber, high-fermented food diets showed dramatically increased microbiome diversity and a measurable decrease in 19 specific inflammatory proteins, several of which are directly associated with cancer progression. Here's what makes this critical for gut health after 60. After 60, something called intestinal permeability increases. Your gut lining literally becomes more porous, a condition sometimes called leaky gut. This allows bacterial toxins called lipopolysaccharides to enter your bloodstream, triggering systemic inflammation that can act like fertilizer for precancerous cells. I had a patient named Margaret, 67, from my practice. Chronically elevated inflammatory markers, fatigue, a strong family history of colorectal cancer. Her diet was quite healthy in most respects, but she had 0 fermented foods. We added 2 servings daily, morning kefir, a small side of sauerkraut at lunch. Within 90 days, her CRP levels, that's C-reactive protein, a key inflammation marker, dropped by 38%. Her gastroenterologist was floored. She told me it was the first time in years she felt like herself again. The mechanism works through something called short-chain fatty acids, particularly butyrate, which is produced when beneficial gut bacteria ferment fiber. Butyrate literally signals precancerous cells in the colon to undergo apoptosis. That means it tells them to die before they cause harm. Think of butyrate like a security guard who quietly escorts the troublemakers out before damage is done. Aim for 1 to 2 servings of naturally fermented food per day, not pasteurized. The heating process kills the live cultures you need. Look for live and active cultures on the label. And your synergy tip here is crucial. Pair fermented foods with prebiotic-rich foods, garlic, leeks, slightly underripe bananas, because prebiotics feed the beneficial bacteria the fermented foods introduce, compounding the effect dramatically. Number 4 is powerful, but number 3 is where the science gets truly extraordinary. And if you're finding this valuable so far, this is a good moment to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. I release evidence-based senior health content every single week, and your support is what makes that possible. Now number 3, something you've almost certainly heard of, but I promise you haven't heard it explained like this. And you almost certainly aren't doing it in the way that actually triggers its cancer preventive effects. I'm talking about daily walking, but not just any walking. I'm talking about what researchers now call metabolic walking. And the difference between regular strolling and metabolic walking could literally be the difference between feeding cancer and starving it. Here's the science. Your body runs on 2 primary fuel systems, glucose and oxygen. Cancer cells, due to a quirk in their metabolism first described by biochemist Otto Warburg in 1931, and now confirmed by hundreds of subsequent studies, are almost exclusively dependent on glucose. They're actually quite poor at using oxygen for energy. This means that when you engage in sustained, moderate-intensity physical activity, the kind that elevates your heart rate to 55 to 70% of your maximum, you do 2 remarkable things simultaneously. You deplete circulating glucose, starving cancer cells of their preferred fuel, and you flood your tissues with oxygenated blood, creating an environment actively hostile to cancer cell survival. A 2020 meta-analysis from the American Cancer Society reviewed data from 1.4 million adults and found that regular moderate physical activity was associated with a 42% reduction in colon cancer risk, a 38% reduction in breast cancer risk, a 27% reduction in lung cancer risk, even in non-smokers. These are extraordinary numbers for something that requires no prescription. Here's where the aging-specific biology becomes critical. After 65, your mitochondria, the tiny power generators inside your cells, decline in both number and efficiency by up to 35%. Mitochondrial dysfunction is now understood to be a key driver of both aging and cancer progression. Sustained moderate walking is one of the only interventions proven to stimulate mitochondrial biogenesis, meaning it literally signals your body to create new, healthy mitochondria. Think of it like getting a new fleet of power generators installed in every cell. Metabolic walking means 30 to 45 minutes of continuous walking, at a pace where you can still hold a conversation but would find it slightly difficult to sing. This needs to happen at least 5 days per week, and ideally in the morning before your first full meal, because fasted movement amplifies the glucose-depleting effect significantly. I want to tell you about Robert, 72, a retired teacher from my practice. Came to me 3 years ago following a cancer scare. A precancerous polyp removed during routine colonoscopy. He was terrified. He wasn't exercising at all. We started him on a morning walking protocol, 35 minutes, 5 days a week. We combined it with dietary changes. At his 2-year follow-up colonoscopy, nothing. Clean. His oncologist specifically noted his dramatically improved inflammatory markers and called his recovery exceptional. Robert told me walking felt like a form of medicine. He was right. It literally is. For synergy, pair your morning walk with your morning hydration from habit number 5. And if possible, walk somewhere with natural light. Because morning sunlight exposure regulates your circadian rhythm, which in turn governs immune surveillance, your body's cancer detection system. The combination is far more powerful than either alone. Number 3 is remarkable, but the next 2 are where things get genuinely revolutionary. Number 2 involves something you eat, and the way it fights cancer after 60 is unlike anything else in the nutritional literature. Here we go. Number 2 is a compound, actually a family of compounds, found in a very specific category of vegetables. And the research on their cancer-fighting mechanism in adults over 60 is some of the most compelling science I've encountered in 30 years of practice. I'm talking about sulforaphane, the powerful bioactive compound found in cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, cabbage, and most potently, broccoli sprouts. Here is why this matters profoundly for aging biology. In 2018, researchers at Johns Hopkins University, where much of the foundational sulforaphane research was done, published findings showing that sulforaphane activates a master genetic switch called NRF2. Think of NRF2 like the head of security for your DNA. When activated, it triggers over 200 protective genes simultaneously. Genes involved in detoxification, antioxidant defense, and critically, the repair of damaged DNA before it can mutate into cancer. And here's the aging-specific tragedy that makes this so urgent. NRF2 activity declines by approximately 40% between the ages of 50 and 70. Your DNA repair system is quietly shutting down. Sulforaphane essentially wakes it back up. A landmark study from the University of Illinois found that regular consumption of sulforaphane-rich foods was associated with a 52% reduction in bladder cancer risk, a 41% reduction in prostate cancer incidence, and significant reductions in breast cancer and lung cancer markers. And perhaps most remarkably, a study from Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Center found that sulforaphane actually targets cancer stem cells, the particularly dangerous cells that conventional chemotherapy often fails to eliminate, the cells responsible for cancer recurrence. Think of cancer stem cells as the generals of an army. You can wipe out the soldiers, but if the generals survive, they rebuild the army. Sulforaphane goes after the generals. Now here's the preparation detail most people get completely wrong. Sulforaphane isn't actually present in broccoli in its active form. It's created through a chemical reaction when you chew or chop the vegetable, activating an enzyme called myrosinase. Here's the critical issue. Cooking above 140 degrees Fahrenheit destroys myrosinase. Fully cooked broccoli delivers very little active sulforaphane. The optimal preparation method. Chop or lightly crush your broccoli or sprouts. Let it sit for 40 minutes before consuming or lightly steaming. This allows the myrosinase reaction to complete. Then steam for no more than 3 to 4 minutes. Raw broccoli sprouts require no cooking and deliver up to 50 times more sulforaphane per gram than mature broccoli florets. Aim for half a cup of raw broccoli sprouts daily, or 1 full cup of lightly prepared broccoli. Your synergy tip here is crucial. Pair your cruciferous vegetables with a small amount of raw mustard seed powder or raw radish. Both are independently rich in active myrosinase. Adding them to cooked cruciferous vegetables effectively restores the enzyme activity that cooking destroyed, increasing sulforaphane bioavailability